let's face it, we have all had days where our manager really gets under our skin. Maybe they micromanage, maybe they take credit for all your work, or give unclear instructions. Yuck. But before you storm into their office and unleash all of your fury, let's pump the brakes just a little bit. Telling your boss that you hate them, or some other form of unleashing, is a recipe for disaster. So what can you do? Well, I'm here with some great tips about how to survive that difficult manager. Now, I have had a manager or two that I have struggled to work with. One in particular tended to question all of my decisions and take away a little bit of my authority by requesting that I do things a different way, despite providing clear rationale for what I was doing and obvious examples and requests for it to be done that way by key stakeholders. It was a pretty frustrating and challenging time. However, it taught me a few maneuvers to get me through, and my first tip is to identify the root cause. Is it their management style, personality, or specific actions that bug you? In my case, it was that they didn't trust me and just leave me to it. I was in a leadership role, so I was working within my boundaries. They just didn't respect it. Once I realized that trust was the issue, I dug a little deeper, and I realized that the reason that they didn't seem to trust me was because they hadn't worked with me before, despite me having built up a good reputation in the organisation and being recommended for my work by others. So once I thought I understood what that root cause actually was, I started working with them slightly differently. Rather than working how I previously had with other managers, where I would give them an update and an overview of what I was working on a regular basis, I decided to do a bit of a trial for one of my projects, and I just kept trucking on with it and then waited until I'd achieved a key milestone and had some resolved actions to give them an update on. I presented clearly to my manager at that point what I had done and at what point the project was at, including the milestones that had been achieved. So there was no changing course or doing anything different. It was a done deal. But I presented it in such a way that it was about it evolving and providing an opportunity to complete actions, and then included some key feedback from the client and made sure I spoke about the client feedback in a way that encompassed the whole team. So it wasn't about my interactions with the client, it was about the results that my interactions with them had provided them with on behalf of the whole group. So in turn, it actually reflected very well on my manager, who was overall responsible for all the leaders and all of the projects and all of the actions. So a win for them. This was pretty enlightening, as my manager actually responded really positively. So my second tip is about adapting your communication to the situation, or to how you know your manager will respond most favourably. So what I did then was then raise how much I enjoyed this interaction with them, and just highlighted the disparity between how we had been working together to how we were working together right then. And yes, I know we weren't really working together. I was presenting something that I had done to them. But to be fair, I did actually genuinely appreciate their response, so I wanted it to continue. So there was truth in it. I wasn't lying. So then I said that I would provide them with another update in 4 weeks' time, which meant again, I would have achieved key milestones for that project and be providing them with results, not opportunities to have to re-justify my decisions. So this worked out well. Now don't get me wrong, I don't mean that you should need to hide things or try to pacify them in a way if they don't agree with you. In my situation, the project work was within my control and my responsibility. It was part of my job. I wasn't crossing any boundaries in terms of the actions that I was taking. I was just adapting my communication, so I wasn't giving them as much reason to question me around my actions. As what I discovered through this exercise was that my manager responded really well to results, and not that well to opportunities to provide unsolicited advice. So rather than tell them to stick their opportunities or advice where the sun didn't shine, I found a way to work with them. It wasn't how I normally worked, but it was better than telling them that I hated them and needing to leave my job. Now, for those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Nikki and I've been in leadership for over 17 years and have gone from leading just 2 people to leading leaders of large teams. And tip 3 is around managing your expectations. You probably can't change your manager. Well, you could probably change your job, which would in fact change your manager. And if you do think you need to do that, do check out the video on your screen, which is about how to know when it is time to change jobs or take the next step in your career. However, in the meantime, reset any expectations around how you're going to work with your manager. This will help you reset with a new framework if that's what you need to make it work. And I do have to say, in the example that I provided you, there was a real element of, so you don't think I can do my job? Well, I'll show you. I'll totally smash it out of the park. Which is actually tip 4, which is to focus on your work. Sometimes the best revenge, when you really want to tell them that you hate them, is success. Channel your frustration into top-notch work so they can't ignore or sideline your skills. Now, unfortunately, you can get into a situation where things are they're not as easily resolved. I worked with somebody a long time ago who showed me that I couldn't trust them. And I ended up needing to write down situations that occurred to make sure that I clearly noted what had happened and what actions were taken. This is probably part of my background in HR. If you're getting a spidey sense that your job or your work is being questioned unfairly, it is helpful to keep a record. Often you won't even need it, but sometimes it can actually be a real comfort and a bit of a stress reliever. Because if you're worried that something's going to happen and you haven't documented all the actions that you've taken, it can be really stressful. Whereas if you know that you've got things bullet pointed down that occurred and you've done all the right things, you can just continue doing your job confidently. You don't need to take down much, just dates, bullet point actions, depending on what it is. Tip number 6, rather than telling your manager that you hate them, is to make sure that you're not isolating yourself. It can be easy to retreat and retract when we're in an uncomfortable situation or we feel like we're being put under pressure. Make sure that you have someone that you can talk to that you really trust. Usually a colleague who has some awareness of what's going on or the environment that you're dealing with is quite useful. It just gives you somebody else to bounce a situation off and make sure that you're not deviating on the wrong path, or give you a few tips to help you manage it, but make sure that you're not gossiping. That's only going to make things 10 times worse. Tip 7 is that this job just might not be your forever home. While you are working there though, if the situation is still a bit of a cat and mouse, where you're continually trying to keep on top of your communication, managing your expectations, and needing to keep getting advice from your trusted colleague, you probably want to focus on also developing your skills and doing your best work so that if you move into a new opportunity, you're well set up. Try and find the silver lining. I know for me, my difficult managers actually taught me almost as much as what my really great leaders did, as they taught me crucial lessons in leadership around resilience, communication and self-advocacy. You can't control your manager, but you can control your reaction. That is totally up to you. So try not to tell your manager that you hate them, and put in place these steps instead. And leave a comment below about your anonymous nightmare manager story and how you dealt with it. And thanks very much for watching.